This Apple thing I find fascinating, and not because it's just Apple or my iPhone cracked and they won't replace my screen. I've got to buy a whole new phone, or we all have our complaints, right? It's not that. Actually, if the last three iPhones I've gotten, one had a bad antenna, one had a bad battery. I don't know, but generally they make pretty good products. I don't have much of a complaint with Apple, other than that I didn't buy their stock back in the 80s when we were using their products at an ad agency. I should have known. Anyway, the question is, should corporations be paying their fair share of taxes? What is their fair share of taxes? I mean, Rand Paul saying Apple shouldn't be on trial here. The U.S. government should be on trial. Rand Paul apparently not a fan of the U.S. government. That being the case, one has to ask the question, why is he part of it? Right? I don't get it. Why don't libertarians just go buy a country someplace and move there? It's like, you don't like the government? Okay. Cool. Don't be part of it. But no, we don't see that happening. So instead, they're playing this little game. These guys, they're playing this little game where they're saying, okay, we're incorporated in Ireland, and so we don't have to pay taxes to Ireland because that's not our principal place of business, but that is where we're incorporated. Our principal place of business is in the United States, but we don't have to pay taxes in the United States because we're an Irish corporation. And this is where it gets really fancy, and I would guess that probably this is where most of it goes on, is, a company like Apple's big enough to actually have a bunch of divisions and move tax liabilities around, and they sell to themselves. They're big enough to sell to themselves. So say you make a phone, and these are just made-up numbers, right? In fact, we shouldn't even use Apple as an example. Let's just say some generic phone manufacturer, because Apple makes a whole lot more than phones. Or some generic computer manufacturer, or some generic refrigerator manufacturer. And they manufacture their refrigerators in Malaysia, where they don't have to follow strict environmental rules. They can pollute the air as much as they want. They can dump toxic chemicals into the water and the soil. Nobody cares. They buy off the local officials. They don't have to worry about noise standards. They don't have to worry about worker safety standards. They can exploit their workers. They can threaten them. They can fire them, for the smallest infraction, and they can pay them diddly-do. So they've got, and the country is supplying infrastructure. The country is supplying them with roads and bridges and high-speed rail and good internet access and a decent port so that they can ship their goods out of the country. And not charging them much by way of taxes. And so what they do is they manufacture this refrigerator that's, let's say it's going to retail in the United States for $250. And they make it in Malaysia, and let's say that their manufactured cost is $50. Now here's the question. Does this company, let's say that they have a couple of divisions. They have a manufacturing division and a retailing division, and they operate them as separate corporations, all under the same name. Does this company sell its refrigerators that it cost them $50 to make in Malaysia? Do they sell them to the U.S. division to sell in the United States for $50? No. Because if they did, then the company in the United States is buying a refrigerator for $50. They're selling it for $250. They're showing a $200 profit on each refrigerator, and they're going to get taxed on that profit. So what do? You got a refrigerator that's going to retail for $250. They sell it to them for $240. Now, where's the profit? It's in the Malaysian company. It's not in the American company. And by keeping that profit offshore in a country that's not going to tax it, they get to sit on this money, and then they come to the United States and they say, we want to buy back our stock, or we want to build a new factory, or we want to give our stockholders a dividend. This is what Apple did this year. We want to give our stockholders a dividend. But we don't have the spare change sitting around. We don't have the cash because the cash is all overseas. So let's float a bond. Let's borrow money at a very low rate, 1%, 2%, because interest is cheap right now. Let's borrow a couple $1 billion. It'll be a very low rate because there's no risk to this bond because we're going to secure it with our offshore cash. We'll put that up as collateral. So if our bond goes bad, people can ding our Malaysian checking account. We'll float a bond for a few $1 billion, and we'll use those billions of dollars to give money to our stockholders. This is what Apple did just a few months ago. This is globalization on steroids. What globalization has allowed these companies to do is to say, we no longer have loyalty to any country. We're not a Malaysian company. We're not an American company. We're not an Irish company. We are above all that stuff. This is genuinely Ayn Rand material. This is Atlas Shrugged on steroids. And they're saying, we don't give a rat's patootie about America and Americans. Come on, that's not, our job is to show profits. Is to make money for our stockholders. And our stockholders might be in the United States. Our stockholders might be in Ireland. Our stockholders might be in Malaysia. They might be in China. They might be in England. They might be in France. They might be in Germany. They could be all over the world. It doesn't matter. Our job is to make profit for our stockholders. And this concept that has held for hundreds of years since the corporate form was invented. The modern corporate form was invented in 1600. December of 1600, Queen Elizabeth I incorporated in the United Kingdom the British East India Company. About 10 years earlier, she had created arguably the first limited liability corporation to fund Sir Francis Drake, the Golden Hind. He's going to travel around the world and map the world and discover treasures and all kinds of goodies. And so she put together this corporation where basically the investor's liability was limited to whatever they put in. Thus, it's called a limited liability corporation. So you put in, 10,000 pounds. The most you could lose is that 10,000 pounds. Even if Sir Francis Drake, blundered into France and started a war and ended up costing his company hundreds of millions of pounds, the investors, their limit of liability would be 10,000 pounds. That's the modern corporate form. Even then, the corporation was a creature of the state of the United Kingdom, and it worked on behalf of the United Kingdom as well as on behalf of itself. And so you had the Golden Hind, you had Sir Francis Drake, to the benefit of the British. You had the British East India Company to the benefit of the British. Now, they screwed us. We fought a revolution to get rid of the East India Company. But they were operating on behalf of their national interests. What has happened to this idea of a company operating in the interests of the country in which it exists? In the interests of the people who are its customers? What's happened to this? It's been devoured by this Ayn Rand logic that profit is more important than country, that patriotism counts for nothing. This is why Rand Paul, this libertarian concept, this is why Rand Paul in the United States Senate today was saying that we should be investigating the government, not Apple. Because governments are now the anachronism. We don't need governments anymore. We need more corporations running things, owning things, telling you how to live.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Like healthcare corporations, for example. We'll be talking to Tim Carpenter a little later on the show about that one. Stick around.